Good evening, everyone. This is a bit of a tough one for me to do, so please bear with me. I'm doing it live, so hopefully it will go okay. As you can see by the title, it is about mental health and awareness. It's something that I've suffered from myself, so I just wanted to share my story so it gets it out there. If you don't take anything else and you don't watch any more of this video, take away this, that it is okay to talk to people and ask for help, because you never know what's going on with people and what's going on in their lives. So just remember that it's okay to ask and it's all right to talk to people. I will shorten the story about where it all started, but the long and short of it is, unfortunately, lost my father coming up 3 years ago in May, and it was a very sudden thing. They went on holiday for a week, came back, and very much within 24 hours of getting off the aeroplane, he had passed away. It basically was diagnosed as he'd had an infection, which then turned into sepsis, and unfortunately, he succumbed to those issues. So that is sort of the general gist of where it all started. At the time, it was very much a situation that we all were sort of looking out for my mum, who obviously had just lost her husband, and quite frankly was very shocked and lost by the whole situation. I think I can speak for all my brothers and say that all of us were looking out for mum and probably not looking out for each other, and as such, you sort of, a lot of things get sort of kept in, as it were. We were very, very lucky. All of us have got very, very good partners and good shoulders to cry on, as it were. But yeah, it was not the time really that we were sort of looking out for each other. Anyway, there were lots of stuff to do, obviously funeral arrangements and all that sort of stuff, which had to be done, and obviously sorted out. That was all done, all fine. Had a holiday to Turkey arranged prior, obviously, to what happened with my dad. So had that, I guess, to look forward to as well. But as soon as I came back from holiday, it was what I can only describe as sort of holiday blues. It was very much a sort of a downward sort of, spiral, just sort of not feeling good about myself, struggling in all walks of life, sort of personal and working, professional, if you like. And I think I was very, very lucky. I was working with colleagues I'd worked with for a very long time, and they knew me from before what happened with dad, and clearly they saw me after and they knew I wasn't right. Obviously I had spoken to people because they clearly knew the situation. I then spoke to a long-term manager that I knew, and he said to me, you do need to go and get, at least speak to a doctor and, get some advice, because you are struggling, which I knew I was, but you just try and bat it off. But he said, if you don't get some help, I'll speak to your other half, obviously Julia, who also at the time we worked together. And she said, he said, if you don't tell her, I will. That night, which unfortunately was our wedding anniversary, I went home, and I went to the doctor's early, and I basically the doctor prescribed it as shock trauma. Now, she said she wanted me to take a month off work. I obviously said no, being a typical man, said no. And she said, right, 2 weeks and that's final. So I took the 2 weeks off, although I had to go back and see the doctor, I think, after the first week. And they did put me on antidepressants, which again I was fully against. But looking back, it was the best thing I ever did. It was only after the first 2 weeks that the doctor said to me, you need to take another 2 weeks off, and you need to look after yourself, because again, taking time off. Julie was still at work. I was going to sort of mum's most days, and just again making sure she was all right. But in the end, I had to have a very difficult conversation with mum. I said, "Look, still going to see you, still going to talk to you, but I'm going to try and stay away a bit as well." Unfortunately, I did have to go and deal with a family issue abroad with mum, which was dealt with, but it was just one thing certainly could have done without. It was just, if you like, fortunate timing. I was off work that I was able to go with mum, because she certainly wouldn't have been able to do it herself at that time. As it in the end, it turned out I was off work for 2 weeks. Sorry, 2 weeks, 2 months. And within that time, I went through all the moods and feelings you could go through. I wasn't sleeping. Having very, very bad nightmares. And a lot of it stemmed from, if you like, the blame, or what I perceived as blame that I could have done better on the day where obviously mum called me to go to the house and obviously see the condition dad was in. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. I immediately, when I got there, I spoke to my dad as briefly as I could to try and get any information. He wasn't very coherent. Called an ambulance. Was on the phone to the ambulance for what was probably half an hour, 45 minutes. So I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but my mind was playing big tricks with me, and I know that now. But at the time, it was very, very real. Having nightmares, almost having fights in your sleep with yourself. All these sorts of things. Certainly, I went through, and you hear about it, but you never think you're going to go through it, and it absolutely, was as real as it could get at the time. But through good, people around me, sort of at work and obviously family, I was able to, talk things through. And I don't think necessarily I even got the help I needed, because it was very much a situation that all the sort of talking and psychiatrist, if you will, was all sort of, friends and family. It was never sort of professional, which, maybe, at the time I could have done with. But you deal with it as best you can. But that is certainly something that I could have done with at the time. That did come later. Anyway, so I got to the end of the 2 months. The doctor finally said they were happy for me to go back to work in a part-time capacity, like sort of light duties. The job I do, which I won't bore you with, but that just doesn't work. It was either going to be all or nothing. They were very good. They were sort of, it wasn't, I didn't have as much to do as I normally would. So I'm not going to say I was thrown in the deep end, but it is what it is. But maybe that's what I needed. I needed to get my mind back on other things, and get back in the game, as it were, because I was going mad by the end of the 2 months of being at home and sort of staring at the same 4 walls and having the same routine and everything else. When you're used to being busy, which I am during the week, it is something that you do miss. And I know that's possibly sounds ridiculous to all those workers out there, but it's true. I then was back at work. It was all going very, very well. I then got a phone call from the doctors saying that they wanted me to go and see for want of a better phrase, a psychiatrist. I'm not sure if that's the proper terminology, but maybe a grief counsellor. I'm not sure. Can't remember the exact terminology. But I sort of went and saw them the once, but I sort of said, I've sort of self sort of not healed, but sort of self dealt with what was going on. And he didn't want to see me anymore. He was quite happy for me to go, and obviously if I had needed any help, that he would he'd see me again. But all this was because of people around me. And again, I said it at the beginning, I'll say it again, it's okay to talk to people. Don't be afraid, and try and look out for the signs people not being their normal selves, or becoming a little bit withdrawn, stuff like that is so key to sort of spotting things, because I guarantee if I didn't have good people around me, I never had bad thoughts, and I think we all know exactly what I'm talking about. But there will be people out there that do go to even darker places than I went to, and I think if I can leave you with anything from this video, apart from talking, it's just spending a few minutes with people sometimes that might need a little bit of TLC and a little bit of conversation, whatever it might be. And I know we all lead very, very busy lives, and I get it. As I've just said, I lead a very, very busy life. But whether it be work colleagues or friends or family, I always, if I can, and that is most of the time, I will, because I've been through it. I will always make sure, if I see someone who's not looking right for whatever reason, I will always say, "Are you okay?" They don't always need to open up to you, but you've made that first statement. And sometimes people will be open, sometimes people won't. It's okay either way, but I'm not saying to keep on at people, far from it, because sometimes people don't want to talk, but it's important to make that first step. And that's all I'll say. So yeah, where are we now? 2.5 years, down the line, 3 years in May. Yeah, for the most part, I'm absolutely fine. You do get sort of good and bad days at times. There's not a day that goes by that obviously I don't think about my dad. And he was very much at times that person that you could sort of bounce ideas off. So I really do miss that. But I also think whenever I'm making any decisions in my life, I always think to myself, what would he have done? What would he have thought? Of course, I'm my own man, and even when he was here, and of course I would, do things for myself. But sometimes for someone who had been there and done it, it was good just to sort of bounce things off, whether you agreed or whether you didn't. You could get a second opinion. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully you've got something out of this. Maybe nothing, but as I say, you do feel free to speak to people, get help, go to the doctors. Believe you me, they've seen it all before. So you're not going to tell them anything they haven't heard before. Everyone is unique, so everyone deals with things in different ways. Can I say I've completely dealt with what happened? I don't know. Maybe one day I'll break down again. Who knows? But this video is not for sympathy or anything else. It's just to get it out there, what I've said, and hopefully you've got something out of it. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. I'm not going to say the normal stuff at the end of this video, because I think the mood of the video is different to the norm. But just watch the video, and at least try and take something from it. Thanks, guys.